Hello everyone, welcome to the Unit 2, the WebGIS architecture. In this unit, we are going to talk about the Web 101 first, which means the basics of the web, and mainly we are going to introduce the HTTP, URL, and HTML. And later on, we are going to talk about the XML and JSON. These two are the data formats that can be used to describe some information. And then these two formats are the popular ones usually used in the web communication. And after that, we are going to talk about the architecture. And general system architecture can be modeled as the three-tier architecture. So we are going to talk about this important three-tier architecture. After that, finally, we are going to talk about the general WebGIS architecture, including the introduction to the thin client and thick client, and which will lead to our discussion in the class. So first of all, in terms of the web basics, the Web 101. So a basic web application is essentially a client and server architecture. So in this case, a web application including two main components. One is called the web client, and the other one is called the web server. So in general, in web applications, usually there are three main components, and including the database and including the web server that use the URL to as the web address to locate it on the internet. And then the other one is the web client. And the web client is where the user locates. And the users can use different types of device and by using different medium to communicate with the web server. So first of all, for example, if right now you are trying to get some information from the Google Map, then in this case, you may be using your browser to try to link to the Google Map URL, the Google Map website. So you need to key in the URL or the domain name of the web of the Google Map. And then by pressing enter on your web client, the web browser, then what your client does is to send out the HTTP request to the web server by using this URL web address. So this HTTP request sent to the web server. The web server receive it, and then it will try to understand what's the request, what's the required information that the client need. Then the web server will communicate with the database and to prepare the corresponding content, the corresponding information that the client needs. And then after that, the web server will compose an HTTP response and then send it back to the client. So as you can see, this is the basic web application. Then more than 90% of the you can say the traffic on the web is by following this client and server architecture. So basically, the client will create HTTP request and send to the server, and server will prepare the HTTP response and then send it back to the client. And after client receive it, and then it will parse the information in the HTTP response and then display those results in the way that the human beings can see. So in order to achieve the communication between the web client and web server, these two independent systems, we need interoperability. And in order to achieve interoperability, we need to define standards. So there are three fundamental enablers of the web, including the HTTP, URL, and also the HTML. And these three standards, they were first invented or created by Tim Berners-Lee in 1990. And then after that, these three standards nowadays, they are international standards managed and maintained by one international standard organization, which is called the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium. So later on, we are going to introduce these three standards one by one.